At 1:15 in the morning on New Year's Day, I walked away from the clinking champagne flutes and the thumping bass of a $50,000 corporate gala. The winter wind bit right through my dress as I crossed the driveway. I grabbed the frozen handle of the unheated garage and pulled the heavy side door open. The smell of motor oil and dead frost hit my lungs. She was curled on a rusted metal folding cot in the far corner. My grandmother was shivering violently, her knees pulled to her chest under a threadbare autumn jacket. The temperature had dropped below zero. A broken space heater sat uselessly near her frozen shoes. My chest tightened. I slipped off my heavy wool trench coat and wrapped it tightly around her frail shoulders. Her skin was solid ice. I pulled her up, letting her lean her entire weight against my side. Back inside the mansion, the guests were still laughing, completely oblivious to the nightmare breathing just on the other side of the drywall. I turned my back to the music. I guided her to the passenger seat of my car, cranked the heat all the way up, and drove straight into the darkness toward Charlotte Memorial Hospital. The sliding glass doors of Charlotte Memorial Hospital parted, rushing us into the blinding fluorescent light of the emergency wing. Nurses swarmed the wheelchair before I even finished explaining. Within 10 minutes, my grandmother was buried under heated blankets, an IV taped to her bruised hand. My name is Skylar. I am 32 years old, and as a high school counselor, my entire career is built on reading between the lines, untangling the elaborate lies people tell to hide their true intentions. But absolutely nothing prepared me for the calculated cruelty my own parents were hiding behind their manicured suburban lawn. The attending physician stepped into the bay, his brow heavy with exhaustion. He pointed his pen at the blinking monitor. Her core temperature was dangerously low, but her blood pressure was a ticking bomb. He asked how many doses of her heart medication she had missed. My jaw tightened. She was supposed to take them every single morning. Cora reached out from under the mountain of heated cotton. Her hand, paper-thin and trembling, wrapped around my wrist. Her voice was barely a whisper, cracking dryly in the sterile hospital air. She told me Erica had been taking the pill bottles away. My mother had also replaced her reading glasses with an old, heavily warped prescription. The air in the room felt suddenly thin. They were deliberately making her dizzy. When Cora inevitably stumbled into a doorframe or squinted at a newspaper. Marcus was right there in the corner, his phone out, recording the decline. They were manufacturing a medical crisis. They needed a documented history of severe dementia, all packaged into neat little video clips for a judge. My phone vibrated against the plastic armrest of the hospital chair. The screen flashed Erica's name. I swiped the green icon and put it on speaker. The clinking of crystal and the low hum of wealthy chatter echoed through the receiver. My mother did not ask if her mother was alive. She demanded to know why I had ruined the optics of her party by causing a scene in the driveway. "Bring her back right now, Skylar," Erica snapped, her tone dripping with annoyance. "You don't understand her condition. She likes it out there. The noise inside makes her irritable. Keeping her isolated is for her own good." Listening to her voice, a chilling realization settled in my chest. This is the ultimate trap of normalizing cruelty. Toxic family members do not wake up and decide to play the villain. Instead, they twist the narrative so completely that their abuse becomes a twisted form of martyrdom. Erica had actually convinced a room full of local elites, and likely herself, that locking a 78-year-old woman in a sub-zero garage was an act of profound sacrifice. She painted herself as the weary, devoted daughter making tough medical choices, feeding off the sympathy of her guests while her mother froze in the dark. I ended the call without speaking a single word. The motive clicked together with sickening precision. My grandfather had left behind a revocable living trust worth $12 million, designed strictly for Cora's care. Meanwhile, Erica and Marcus were drowning. Their fake upper-crust lifestyle was funded by predatory loans, and they were staring down massive IRS tax liens. They needed emergency conservatorship to declare her utterly incompetent. They were going to throw her into a cheap, state-run facility, liquidate the trust, and save their own sinking ship. They treated her like a voiceless burden they could easily erase. But they forgot she raised me. And they forgot I write the behavioral reports they were trying to fake. 9 days. That was exactly how long it took for the IRS and the bank to back them into a corner. Marcus pushed the yellow foreclosure notice across Harold's mahogany conference table. His hands trembled, making the paper rattle against the wood. The crisp cuff of his tailored shirt was slightly frayed. Erica sat next to him, aggressively picking at her manicured cuticles. The fake aristocratic glow had completely vanished from her cheeks, replaced by the pale, sweaty panic of a woman about to lose her country club status. They needed $350,000 to stop the public auction of their mansion. They begged. Marcus spun a long, pathetic story about market downturns and predatory lenders. Erica actually forced a single tear to roll down her cheek. She reached across the table for my hand, whispering about how family always needs to stick together during hard times. I pulled my hand back and folded my fingers in my lap. I let the silence stretch in the room. I let them sweat under the heavy ticking of Harold's antique grandfather clock. Then, I slid a single, pre-drafted document across the glass. It was a deed in lieu of foreclosure. The rules were agonizingly simple. Cora's trust would pay their debt. But in exchange, we held the absolute title to their home in escrow. The primary condition was total financial transparency. No new debt. No luxury spending. Break the covenant, and the house legally transfers to Cora's trust. Automatically, without a trial. People think justice always requires dramatic courtroom showdowns, screaming matches, or teams of forensic accountants digging through encrypted offshore hard drives. It usually does not. Real justice lives in boring, everyday documentation. A date on a catering receipt. A signature on a vendor form. A single piece of paper with clear, rigid boundaries. That is the ultimate trap. Marcus scanned the terms, his jaw clenching hard enough to pop. Erica looked at him, her eyes wide and desperate. The county auction was 48 hours away. They had absolutely no leverage. Marcus grabbed Harold's heavy silver pen and signed his name. Erica followed. As the notary stamped the final page, Erica let out a long breath and offered me a hollow, grateful smile. They honestly believed they had outsmarted me. They thought they could just sign a piece of paper, reset their bank accounts, and go right back to drinking vintage champagne. They forgot my entire career is built on analyzing toxic behavior. I counsel troubled teenagers who lie to survive. I know exactly how long an ego-driven narcissist can hold their breath before their vanity demands oxygen. The answer was exactly 18 days. I drove back to the Myers Park mansion that Tuesday afternoon to collect the rest of Cora's winter sweaters. The front door was propped open by the cleaning crew. The foyer smelled of fresh lilies and expensive catering. I walked into the kitchen. Sitting right on the center of the marble island was a glossy, heavy stock flyer. Golden Age Dignity Gala. Platinum table sponsorships $10,000. My pulse steadied into a slow, cold rhythm. Right next to the stack of flyers sat a crisp leather envelope from the local Land Rover dealership. I flipped the cover open. A finalized bill of sale and a wire transfer receipt for a brand new Range Rover. I pulled my phone from my coat pocket. I aimed the camera. 2 taps on the screen. The flash illuminated the dealership logo and Erica's sprawling signature. I forwarded the images directly to Harold. No phone calls. No warnings. No second chances. The trap was officially triggered. The heavy, rhythmic pounding on my apartment door started at 9 in the morning on a Thursday. No doorbell, just hard knuckles against wood. I set my coffee mug on the granite counter and pulled the deadbolt. A uniformed police officer stood in the hallway, flanked by two people wearing state-issued ID lanyards. Adult Protective Services. The lead caseworker, a woman with a tight bun and a severe expression, held a thick clipboard against her chest. She asked for my grandmother by her full legal name. She used the phrase emergency welfare check. But the rigid set of her shoulders implied a raid. Erica and Marcus had launched their desperate counterattack. Realizing their financial lifeline was officially cut, they decided to weaponize the state. The caseworker read the charges. My mother had filed a sworn affidavit claiming I abducted a severely impaired dementia patient in the middle of the night to drain her trust fund. Marcus had supplied those manipulated videos of Cora stumbling and dropping glasses. They were demanding immediate state custody. Toxic people never surrender when you cut off their supply. They escalate. They project their exact crimes onto you, hoping the sheer audacity of the lie will paralyze the system. I stepped aside and pushed the door wide open. The caseworker marched into my living room, her eyes darting around, searching for a neglected, terrified victim. Instead, she found Cora sitting by the balcony window in the morning sun, sipping chamomile tea and filling out a crossword puzzle in pen. Cora looked up, her posture perfectly straight, her eyes sharp and clear. She offered them a polite, puzzled smile. The caseworker froze mid-step. The narrative on her clipboard completely clashed with the physical reality in the room. I walked over to my desk and opened the top drawer. I had been waiting for this exact visit since New Year's Day. I pulled out a heavy manila envelope and handed it directly to the caseworker. She opened the metal clasp. The first page was the emergency room intake report from Charlotte Memorial. She traced her finger over the highlighted sections detailing severe hypothermia, acute blood pressure spikes, and the deliberate withholding of prescription heart medication. The second document was an exhaustive, board-certified neurological evaluation. It was signed by the chief of neurology, definitively declaring Cora to have flawless cognitive function, completely free of any dementia or age-related mental decline. The silence in the living room thickened. The only sound was the crisp rustle of the heavy paper as the caseworker flipped through the indisputable evidence. The color slowly drained from her face. She compared the dates on Erica's emergency affidavit to the hospital admission logs. The timeline exposed the entire lie. She looked at the police officer. The officer shifted his weight, his hand resting casually on his duty belt. The caseworker closed the folder, the severe expression melting into cold realization. She asked for the security footage from the garage. I handed her a silver flash drive. They walked out without another question for me. The caseworker simply tucked the manila envelope under her arm and asked for my mother's exact address in Myers Park. The investigation had instantly flipped. Erica and Marcus thought they were sending the authorities to destroy my life. Instead, they just hand-delivered a felony elder abuse case right to their own front door. Erica stood at the center of the ballroom stage, bathed in a warm, golden spotlight. She wore a stunning beaded evening gown, clutching a microphone with both hands. Her voice trembled with practiced perfection as she spun a heartbreaking tale to the silent, captive audience. She spoke about the agonizing grief of watching her mother slip away to dementia and the immense personal sacrifice required to provide her with specialized care. The wealthy guests nodded sympathetically. Some wiped tears from their eyes. The heavy mahogany doors at the back of the hall swung open. The loud thud echoed across the marble floor. The microphone fed back with a sharp whine. Erica stopped mid-sentence. I walked straight down the center aisle. Cora walked right beside me. She was not confined to a wheelchair. She was not shivering in a threadbare autumn jacket. She wore a tailored sapphire blue dress and pearl earrings. Her head was held high, her steps perfectly steady, radiating quiet authority. The blood completely drained from Erica's face. Her jaw went slack. The heavy layer of expensive foundation could not hide the sheer, paralyzing terror expanding in her wide eyes. A collective gasp ripped through the ballroom. Champagne flutes paused halfway to lips. I bypassed the stage and walked straight to the audiovisual desk. I pushed the technician aside and slid a single cable into my tablet. The massive projector screens behind Erica flickered and changed. The first document towered over her. The dealership invoice for the Range Rover, paid in full using the exact funds forbidden by the legal covenant. The elite crowd stared at the screen. The polite silence collapsed into loud, angry whispers. I swiped to the next slide. A corporate bank statement exposing Marcus's secret financial stake in a shady nursing home. A $20,000 kickback bounty for every wealthy, vulnerable senior they funneled into that nightmare facility through this exact charity. Marcus shot up from his VIP table. Sweat beaded heavily on his forehead. He backed away from his chair, pointing a trembling finger at the stage. He shouted over the outraged crowd, desperately claiming he was completely innocent. He swore he knew nothing about the medical abuse and blamed the entire scheme on Erica. I tapped the glass screen one last time. A fresh wire transfer receipt flashed above them. $250,000 drained from their shared accounts into a private bank in Nevada. Booked alongside a one-way first-class flight. He was abandoning her to take the fall. Erica snapped. The polished, aristocratic facade shattered into a million pieces. She gripped the live microphone and screamed at her husband. Her shrill voice blasted through the massive speakers, completely unhinged. She confessed to hiding the heart pills. She yelled about forcing Cora into the freezing garage. She laid out every dark, toxic detail of their plot, completely destroying herself just to drag him down into the dirt with her. The county sheriff stepped out from the shadows near the exit, holding the formal order to vacate. Cora looked up at the stage. She offered her daughter one final, pitying glance. We turned around and walked out into the crisp winter air, leaving the ballroom in absolute chaos. They lost the mansion by the following morning. State and federal investigators seized their remaining assets before the end of the week. Today, they live in a cramped, noisy apartment near an industrial park, working exhausting retail shifts just to afford their criminal defense attorneys. The $12 million trust remains entirely untouched. Cora lives with me now. We repainted the guest room a soft yellow and filled the balcony with her favorite blooming orchids. Every morning, she sits in the sunlight, sipping chamomile tea in total peace. Her hands do not tremble anymore. The gavel came down on a rainy Tuesday morning in late October, officially closing the federal case. The judge did not mince his words, looking directly at my mother and stepfather to call their actions a masterclass in predatory depravity. He sentenced Marcus to 9 years in federal prison for corporate embezzlement, wire fraud, and felony elder abuse, with no eligibility for parole before 7 years. Erica received a 6-year sentence in a state penitentiary. The court also ordered a joint financial restitution of $412,000 to compensate the families of the other vulnerable seniors they had funneled into that nightmare medical facility. The financial ruin was absolute. The state seized the Range Rover, froze their hidden Nevada accounts, and liquidated the furnishings of their cramped apartment. But the true social execution happened long before the handcuffs clicked. The Myers Park Country Club permanently revoked their memberships. High society friends who eagerly drank their $50,000 champagne now actively crossed the street to avoid them. Their polished, arrogant world simply erased them. 8 months later, a thin, crumpled envelope arrived in my downtown mailbox. The return address was stamped by a state correctional facility. The handwriting was unmistakable. Erica's cursive was just as demanding as always. though the cheap prison paper robbed the ink of its usual aristocratic flair. I stood at my quiet kitchen counter, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, and tore the flap open. She filled 3 pages with a predictable, exhausting symphony of excuses. She complained that the commissary food was terrible, the concrete walls were damp, and the guards disrespected her. Then came the manipulation. She reminded me she was still my mother, and that true family must forgive each other. There was not a single sentence apologizing to Cora for the freezing garage. There was no remorse for stealing the heart medication. It was a masterpiece of covert manipulation, a desperate, hollow echo trying to pull me back into her orbit of chaos. 6 months prior, a letter like that would have triggered a massive panic attack. I would have drafted 20 angry responses in my head. But standing there in the morning light, I felt absolutely nothing. I did not feel anger. I did not feel sorrow. I just felt incredibly tired of the noise. I folded the pages perfectly in half, dropped them directly into the kitchen trash can without replying, and went back to making my morning coffee. My life is incredibly quiet now, and I guard that beautiful quiet with everything I possess. The $12 million trust remains secure, but the real wealth is the peace breathing inside my apartment. Cora joined a community gardening club down the street. Every Thursday afternoon, she hosts 3 ladies from her historical book club right in our living room. My own circle is small but unbreakable. Harold, the attorney who stood by us through the darkest hours, comes over for dinner every other Sunday to argue with Cora about crossword puzzles. My closest friends fill this home with genuine, unconditional laughter. We are a chosen family, bound not by biology, but by mutual respect and safety. Every morning, I watch the color return to Cora's cheeks. I watch her plant vibrant yellow orchids on the sunlit balcony, her hands steady, her mind sharp, completely free from the suffocating shadow of my parents. This is exactly why I am sharing this testimony today. If you have spent your entire life twisting yourself into knots, trying to earn the love of a family member who only views you as a tool for their own vanity, I need you to hear me clearly. Covert narcissists do not see their children or parents as human beings with fragile histories. They see us as administrative inconveniences or liquid assets to be violently drained. They will weaponize your natural empathy and aggressively accuse you of the exact cruelty they are committing in the dark. You cannot heal that kind of toxicity with enough love, and you cannot save them from their own consequences with enough money. I learned 3 absolute life rules through this nightmare. Rule number 1: blood is nothing more than a biological fact, but loyalty is a daily choice. Sharing a last name does not give anyone a permanent pass to exploit your kindness or break your spirit. Rule number 2: silence in the face of family cruelty is complicity. True strength is operating with deep emotional stillness while enforcing absolute legal boundaries. Let the receipts do the fighting. And rule number 3: real revenge is not watching your abusers fall apart in public. Real revenge is total restoration. It is watching the people you saved finally bloom in the sunlight. It is waking up in a home where you never have to walk on eggshells ever again. Standing up against the people who raised you is the most terrifying thing you will ever do. But protecting your own peace and defending the vulnerable people who loved you first is a sacred, non-negotiable duty. So I want to ask you a question. Have you ever had to choose between protecting your peace and keeping a toxic family promise? Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because they refused to respect your fundamental dignity? Please take a moment to leave a comment below. Share your testimony of survival and healing. We read every single one, and your story might be the exact spark someone else needs today to break their own chains. Subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories of strength, and please share this video with anyone who needs the courage to stand up and walk away. I am Skylar. and I am finally free.